紧接着，我们要进行今天第一场的 Keynote Speech， 由国家卫生研究院国家高龄医学暨健康福祉研究中心许志成执行长主持。
师长、还有副院长，还有各位在座的前辈老师、教授，大家早安。那我们紧接着进行我们今天第一场的 Keynote Speech 的演讲。那我想，刚刚我们很多来宾跟长官有跟我们介绍，失智症其实是引爆很多啊。那我们要怎么预防？当然就是从现在开始做都不会来不及，就是我们要从营养啊、运动啊、cognitive function 的 training 等等。但是那个基本一个人为什么会失智？他跟你的这个家庭背景、你的以前的人生的经验，其实也都有相关的。那我想，我们今天邀请到一个非常有能力来讲这个topic 的一个专家，而且是国外专家。大家知道，我们失智症的screening 第一步就是要做 AD8。那 AD8 的创造者就是我们现在等一下要跟我们报告的机构叫做 Washington University at St. Louis 发展出来的啦。所以我想他们整个失智症照护中心在 Washington University 是一个很 powerful 的一个机构。那他们出来的人一定是讲得不错。我们今天跟我们做第一场 Keynote Speech 是 Marissa Streitz， 她主要是这个University of St. Louis。University of Missouri at St. Louis 的一个 social worker 的 master degree 的硕士，他现在是 assistant executive director 在Washington University School of Medicine 的阿兹海默 Research Center 当 assistant executive director 了。那因为他本身主要是 social worker， 所以他会从一个人的家庭，你从小受到家庭的照护，还有你过去的经验来 correlate 到未来的失智症。那而且在他们这边用很多的 biomarker 去做一个研究的验证了哈。那我们因为他在美国，所以我们是预录的方式。那那个 Streitz Marissa 她本身目前就在线上，等一下演讲完，大家如果有问题可以做现场的 Q&A 了。好，那我们欢迎这个 Miss Marissa Streitz.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marissa Streitz, and I am the Assistant Executive Director here at the Knight Alzheimer Disease Research Center at Washington University in St. Louis. On behalf of myself and our center's director, Dr. John Morris, I'd like to thank the organizers of the Conference on Research and Dementia Care Policy, as well as Professor Yang for the kind invitation to speak with you today. We are honored to share our recent work exploring how social and structural determinants of health may influence Alzheimer's disease biomarkers in our research cohort. Before I begin, I'd like to share my disclosure statement. My research is supported through the National Institute on Aging through several grants. I have no consulting relationships, industry-sponsored trials, or consulting relationships or financial conflicts to disclose. Let's begin with some background to frame our study. Currently, over 57 million people worldwide live with dementia, with nearly 10 million new cases diagnosed each year. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause, but other pathologies like cerebrovascular disease and Lewy body disease also contribute. These pathologies are collectively known as ADRD, or Alzheimer's disease and related disorders. Notably, the burden of dementia is projected to rise dramatically, especially in low and middle income countries, which already account for 60% of global cases, and may even spike to 71% of cases by the year 2050. According to the World Health Organization, ADRD is already the 7th leading cause of death globally. We know that dementia risk is not evenly distributed. Black and Hispanic individuals, as well as those living in economically disadvantaged areas, are at higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. Several factors may contribute to this disparity, including selection bias in research, higher rates of comorbidities, and differences in social determinants of health, factors which are not often captured in traditional research protocols. Social and structural determinants of health refer to conditions in which people are born, live, work, and age. These factors, often shaped by policy, social norms, and systemic inequalities, can influence disease onset and progression. And typically, they're particularly impacted and impact historically minoritized groups. Measuring social and structural determinants of health in Alzheimer's research is critical. It can help us understand how adversity across the life course, or what some may call weathering, may contribute to neurodegeneration. It can also help us figure out if social and structural determinants of health play a critical role in the pathogenesis of AD. We have lots of questions that have yet to be answered. Let's now explore the steps that we at the Knight Alzheimer's Disease Research Center took to start to measure social determinants of health in our research cohort. In 2019, we set out to develop a concise yet comprehensive method with which to assess social determinants of health in our research participants. We first took to the literature to see what was already known about these factors and ADRD. We found that many studies lacked appropriate social determinants of health measures, limiting the generalizability. And also that more broad measures did exist, which was great, but it was not what we were looking for. We needed something that was more tailored to the individual participant. Measures such as the Area Deprivation Index were available, and that's great. It measures disadvantage on the neighborhood level by about block by block, which is about 1,500 people. But we wanted something that we could measure, where we could measure disadvantage in participants individually. Additionally, we needed to keep our center's needs in mind. We already ask a lot of our participants. You'll see shortly how much we already asked them to do. And we wanted to be mindful not to add to their research burden if possible. We already have an extensive research protocol that involves a lot of testing, so whatever we decided to do needed to integrate easily into our existing protocol. Our center focuses on the preclinical or pre-symptomatic side of Alzheimer's disease, but we do have participants who are mildly cognitively impaired, so whatever battery we chose to use needed to be applicable with participants who do have some mild memory loss, and also keeping in mind the burden. We did not want to add time to the participant's study visit if at all possible, so we wanted to look for some flexibility in adding research protocol to our existing measures and see if there was options that the participants could complete of this battery at their leisure or at home, thus avoiding adding time to their study visits. It turns out there are a very wide range of domains to consider. Here's a figure that was just recently taken from the Alzheimer's Association Facts and Figures paper, and it really highlights the many modifiable risk factors, or what we would also call social determinants of health, that may impact ADRD. And these are just some of the domains that are available to be measured. We knew that we as a center needed to focus on socioeconomic status as a research priority for us, because the research pointed us to dementia disparities between those in differing economically advantaged areas. We also knew that measuring socioeconomic status across multiple time points would permit greater understanding and fluctuations in disadvantaged time points across the lifespan. We already use the social economic status of the Hollingshead Index, which is great, but it really only measured one time point, and it was the adult life and our participants' socioeconomic status in adult life. It asked them questions about their occupation and their highest level of education. But there are other possibilities for us to use, such as the Life Course Demographics and Neighborhood Exposure Questionnaire, which asked about socioeconomic status across the lifespan, as well as the Minority Aging Research Study, which not only looked at early life school experiences, but also asked about the parental early life education. So how far did your parents get in school, which helped us assess early life socioeconomic status. We narrowed down a large list of possible determinants to study with the assistance of the literature review and an interdisciplinary team of researchers that we had on hand at WashU. We knew we wanted to consider this wide range of domains across multiple time points, which is exactly how we divided it up. Early life experiences, current experiences, and also lifelong exposures to certain things such as discrimination. We work very closely with our African American advisory board to ensure cultural sensitivity and relevance. So their feedback helped us refine the battery, including removing burdensome items and improving the clarity. Specifically, their overall feedback was positive. They indicated that the length of the battery was okay, but they did specifically ask for clearer instructions in some of the domains, specifically in the discrimination battery and in the physical activity battery, which will come into play in a little bit later. After a quick evaluation of the initial battery, as well as incorporating some of the social determinants of health measures that were used at the University of Pennsylvania, we made a few changes to our initial battery. So first, we removed the entire physical activity questionnaire. It was just too long, and it was difficult to administer for participants to administer by themselves. It really needed a staff person to ask the questions with them and to explain the instructions. Second, we changed out our social support measure. We did use the multidimensional scale of perceived social support at first, but due to the poor interclass correlation coefficient score of 0.42, we did swap that out with the Lubin social network scale, which is another validated measure that we did swap out. And so that's what is now in our battery. We tested it. We did a retest feasibility study with 112 of our own participants in our cohort, and that's why we tested the initial battery. Here is the final SS Dyad battery. or the social and structural determinants of health influencing aging and dementia. It includes validated tools across domains such as childhood adversity, stress, social support, and socioeconomic status. We did publish the results of the feasibility study in a 2022 paper, which I do have cited here at the bottom. Now, let's discuss the current study. We then took a first pass and conducted a very preliminary cross-sectional study to explore whether these social determinants of health measures from the SS-Dyad correlated with Alzheimer's disease biomarkers. We hypothesized that the social determinants of health domains thought to influence ADRD would correlate with AD-positive biomarkers. Our participants were cognitively unimpaired or very mildly impaired adults over the age of 40, already enrolled in studies of memory and aging at our center here at the Knight Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. Again, like I said, it's a cross-sectional design. We asked them to complete the baseline and SS-Dyad battery, and they could complete it electronically, they could complete it online, and at home or in person in the office. All of our participants, so this was not specific to this study, but all of our participants who are participating in studies here at the Knight Alzheimer's Disease Research Center are invited to undergo biomarker testing, which includes imaging, lumbar puncture for the collection of cerebrospinal fluid, as well as blood draw for fasted and non-fasted plasma. So they're always asked to do this every 3 years and at baseline. We then use the item response theory to estimate latent traits for each domain and correlated these biomarker values. Analyses were adjusted for covariates, including ApoE status and fasting status. Significance was adjusted for a false discovery rate of 5%. Here are the demographics of those who participated in our study, stratified by race. All of these individuals completed the SS-Dyad and had at least one biomarker measure within 2 years of completing the battery. Overall, our sample included 715 participants, 14% of whom identified as Black and 57% were female. You can see that our cohort is highly educated with an average formal education level of 16.5 years, which equates to a little over a bachelor's degree. The majority are cognitively unimpaired. You can see 92% are CDR0, and 59% do not carry the ApoE4 allele. You can also see that the biomarker variability here varied by domain and collection method, which we accounted for in our analyses. Various domains included childhood events, discrimination, and stress, while biomarker collection methods included PET imaging, lumbar puncture, and a blood draw for plasma. The first column represents the overall number of participants who completed biomarkers. And when we restrict the time frame within the last 2 years, the number of participants who completed the SS-dyad and a biomarker within the last 2 years does decrease. Here are our preliminary results. We took all of the childhood experiences questions and created 2 composite scores, one for positive childhood experiences and one for the negative experiences. So first, we found a correlation between positive childhood experiences, such as feeling loved or special or close to your family. We found that these measures were linked to reduced tau pathology, meaning that these participants had less AD pathology. We also found that negative experiences like food insecurity and other neglectful experiences were associated with an increased amyloid, suggesting that increased AD pathology were associated with negative childhood experiences. Although interestingly, you'll see here at the bottom, we did have some findings from these composite scores which were counterintuitive, such as increased AD pathology in those reporting positive childhood experiences. So we did have some counterintuitive findings here. Here are additional results from our childhood experiences analyses, but they are not from the composite scores. These are more from the individual questions within the battery. So we did find an increase in AD pathology in those who reported not having enough to eat, also in those who reported experiencing an intensely frightening event. Also, those who reported attending a racially segregated school were found to have increased plasma tau 181, suggesting increased AD pathology. One note about the segregated school is that the question is, did you attend a legally segregated school while you were growing up? And we leave it up to the participant whether or not they determined that that was a segregated school. Although in the US, legal segregation ended in 1954, in our particular area of Missouri, and St. Louis particularly, we are still very segregated based on residential lines, and so we allowed our participants to decide whether or not they felt that their school was racially segregated or not. So we left that question up to them. To end the childhood experiences on a positive note, those who reported attending a private school were found to have less tauopathy as measured by tau PET scans. So again, suggesting decreased AD pathology. We found far fewer correlations between AD pathology and more of the current day factors. We did in fact create a composite score for stress and found that those who did not report stressful experiences did have less AD pathology, which is good. But to our surprise, again, we also found additional counterintuitive results that those who did not report experiencing discriminatory threats or insults throughout their lives were actually correlated with having increased CSF p-tau 217 compared to those who did experience discrimination. So kind of a mixed bag here. In general, we found that some early life experiences and stressors were significantly associated with Alzheimer's disease biomarkers, but it's important to keep in mind that our study is very preliminary and only using cross-sectional data. our findings suggest that it is possible that some social determinants of health may shape Alzheimer's disease pathology, but our results also highlight the complexities of these determinants. Of course, our study has limitations. Obviously, our sample size, especially for Black participants, and the number of participants who have biomarker data was very limited. Selection bias may also play a role. Typically, those who participate in biomarker studies tend to be highly educated and may not reflect the broader population that is found throughout the literature, but also is evident in our own cohort. You can see that in our own biomarker studies, the mean years of education for our Black participants is 16.2 years, again, which equates to a little higher than a bachelor's degree, which is certainly not the norm in America. So people who generally agree to participate in these types of studies are certainly not representative of the general public. We are now expanding this work through COMPASS, which is a new study that we are recruiting from the community health care settings. This cohort is younger, more diverse, and much more representative. And you can see here, we just started. This is our future direction, and we're very excited about it. It's not currently funded, but we did submit a grant to hopefully get this funded, but we are up and running. It's very slow, but our goal here is, like I said, to recruit a younger, more diverse, more representative cohort of participants. So far, and we are not doing this work at our medical center. This work is actually being done in the community healthcare settings. So no one comes to our center for the study. So since February of 2025, so this year, we've already enrolled 31 participants. 84% self-identify as Black or African American. The average years of education, formal education, is 12.4, which equates to about high school diploma, which is far more generalizable than our own biomarker cohort. And we ask these participants to come in annually for clinical and cognitive testing, as well as for plasma blood-based biomarkers. So they all have agreed to give blood, which we are very excited about. And for me personally, I'm excited that they have all completed the SS dyad. So we hope to be able to compare them to our biomarker cohort soon enough. Also on the horizon, which is very exciting, as of June of this past year, this year 2025, all 36 of the Alzheimer's disease research centers across the United States are now required to collect social and structural determinants of health via our Uniform Dataset version 4, which is the national protocol for all of the Alzheimer's disease research centers, the minimum data set that we all have to collect and submit to a national registry of data. So it will include social and structural determinants of health data. So our center continues to collect that UDS data, but also to collect early life data to deepen our understanding of how adversity across the lifespan influences Alzheimer's disease risk, because that domain was left out of the UDS4 data, the UDS4 form. And I will show you now This is a look at the commonalities between the batteries with the social and structural determinants influencing aging and dementia on the left, the SS diet here on the left, and the UDS version 4 on the right. And you can see that we are collecting very similar domains, but with the inclusion of the childhood adverse and positive experiences, our center at WashU will continue to collect that. But I'm very excited because with the mandate of the UDS version 4, the social determinants of health data, all 36 centers will now have thousands of participants contributing their SDOH data to one database, and we will indeed have a lot more data points to look at. Unfortunately, they don't all have the biomarker data that we have, but at least we are all collecting the same social determinants of health data, so that is a great start. In closing, I want to thank our study participants for all of their time and contributions to our research. We could not do this without them. I also want to thank all of the cores and projects that do the work at our center. They make this work possible, and it's amazing how much of a team effort this really is. Again, thank you to our Knight faculty and staff that continue to help us, particularly my mentors, Dr. John Morris and Dr. Krista Mulder. This work is greatly supported by them. And I want to thank you, everyone, for your invitation to come and share our work about social determinants of health and for your attention today. And I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Marissa, for your excellent talk. 目前大概还有10分钟了，如果大家有问题 ，Marissa, are you still online? Yeah, you still online? 他现在在嗨，来，副院长请。有在。We have a question for you.
Hi, Marissa. You are an excellent talk. Also, congratulate on your pilot study that collect very comprehensively about biomarkers, particularly several markers related to Alzheimer's disease like amyloid beta protein or the tau body. My question is, it seemed to me on your slide, you did not include any information about the ApoE epsilon 4, because in Caucasian, about 30% of people carry the epsilon E. And one particular reason I'm asking this because some of your findings, you are saying paradoxical, like positive childhood experience somehow increased Alzheimer's pathology or something like that. I have not much explained that, but in ApoE epsilon, we observe one phenomenon, including other research group. People who carry epsilon 4 in their early, not early, but in the middle age, somehow their cognitive test is better than non-carrier. But after certain age group, like after age 70, then they become to decline more rapidly. So somehow in the early stage, pre-dementia stage, they kind of make compensatory process. So I think this is a very complicated issue. That means, when we talk about the risk factor or biomarker, somehow we have to know at what age group. Because, based on those follow-up study, people carry poor genetic background, they may make extra effort. But up to a certain point, they're no longer able to compensate. Then they show more rapid decline. So maybe this can you can think about. But back to my question is, do you measure epsilon 4?
I'm sorry, say that last part of the question again.
Do you have the ApoE SNP measurement?
Do we have the ApoE SNP measurement? Is that what you're asking me?
ApoE epsilon 4 allele. Yeah, because that's a very common. But in your table, I didn't see that, so I'm wondering whether they show any interesting association with your, SODH.
So we do have that represented in the demographic cohort of the demographic table that I had shown. I don't know if you saw it. It was at the bottom. And we do list it if they're an ApoE4 carrier or not. And that's pretty much the extent of it. We had not, we did account for it in our analyses, but we did not do anything further than that. But it's a very interesting and intriguing idea that you have about thinking about this from an ApoE in a midlife, more through midlife and looking at it from that angle. But yes, so it's there. Unfortunately, there's just not as, we just don't, as a center, we just haven't done as much with it yet with social determinants of health-wise. But I appreciate the suggestion, and it's very intriguing.
Yeah, maybe if you can make data available to us, we can help you to do some analysis.
Hey, I can help you with the data request because I actually handle the data requests too. And as Dr. Morris wanted me to mention, we are always happy to collaborate. Okay. So, yeah, we can see we have a very homologous group in our cohort, and we would love to diversify a little bit more. So, always happy to collaborate.
Thank you. We will collaborate with you in shortly. We have another question from the audience.
Hi, Marissa. It was very nice to hear your talk. And what you did on social determinants of health was really intriguing because that's what I teach at my medical school mainly. And I also apply that to a little bit of my dementia research. Another aspect that you did was the childhood experience. And I'd like to ask you how you collected data, whether you asked the people with dementia themselves, or did you have to rely on family members, and whether that kind of information reliability and accuracy, would that be matter to the overall research? Thank you.
So thank you for your question. And this is very, very good question. So the majority, if you saw in our participant demographic table, the majority of our participants that completed the SSDIAD and for this particular study were, I think 92%, were cognitively unimpaired. So they were CDR 0, so no memory impairment. But the 8% that were impaired, we do give them an option. So if they feel like they can complete the battery themselves, it's 20 questions of that particular assessment of the childhood events. It's 20 questions. So they either feel comfortable taking it themselves, or we ask the collateral source or their study partner to complete it with them. And then we ask that at the end, did you have help taking this assessment? Did anyone assist you with this? Just so we have it documented. But in the initial feasibility study where we measured the adverse childhood event scale with 112 participants, we actually did that interclass correlation, and I'm not a statistician, so I might get this wrong, but with the interclass correlation, it actually was scored our highest score. It was a 0.92, and we had not, that had never been done before with this population. And so we published that result in our first paper from 2022 on the actual battery. And we were really excited to see that result because that just gave me more credence to say, yes, we can continue to collect adverse childhood events in these older adults. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you for your excellent talk and also communicate with our audience. I think we will collaborate with you and all the night Alzheimer's Disease Research Center shortly. Thank you. Due to the time constraint, I have to close this section. Thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you all for the invitation.
感谢许执行长的主持，也感谢 Streitz 博士带来的深度见解。